All right, welcome back to another edition of the Franklin Community High School Career Exploration Project. And today we are joined by Lori Foraker, and she is the Clinical Research Coordinator at the Duke University Eye Center. So Lori, first of all, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, you're welcome. No problem.
So just tell us a little bit about your role, the Clinical Research Coordinator. Tell us about that, what that is, what you do, and kind of how you got there.
Okay, sure. So as a Clinical Research Coordinator at Duke, I'm basically responsible for enrolling patients in eye studies, clinical trials, anywhere from phase 1, which are brand new procedures or drugs or implants that they're trying to get approved by the FDA, all the way to phase 3 and 4, which is literally right before they're approved. So they go through all the phases before they go to the FDA for approval. So I work with the doctors, the ophthalmologists, and we identify patients who have certain eye conditions, and then we contact them, see if they're interested, and enroll them in the studies.
All right. And how did you get to this position? Were you is it optometrist?
Optometrist? No, it's kind of a crazy story how I got to the Duke Eye Center. But my background, my undergraduate degree is in social work. So I was a social worker for a few years out of college, and then I took about 12 years off to have my 4 children and raise them. And so when my youngest was about 4, I, through a friend, got a job at the Duke Clinical Research Institute, very part-time, doing interviewing with research participants. So we would call patients in on the phone and ask them questionnaires. So, and I really liked that, liked working with patients and doing that. And so I just kind of stayed at the Duke Clinical Research Institute, DCRI for short, for about 8 years and worked my way up. And I was a clinical trial coordinator there. And the difference is that the DCRI is an academic research organization, which basically they work with sites, bring sites up and manage them. So at the site level, you're enrolling patients in studies. And then the academic or clinical research organizations, depending if they're run by universities or they're for profit, they kind of manage the sites at the different hospitals and universities across the country. So, and then I found this job at the Duke Eye Center, even though I have no eye experience at all, but have lots of research experience. So kind of have learned a lot about the eye, but more, as a research coordinator, you're more about coordinating the visits. So I don't do any of the eye exams or anything like that. I mainly run the patient through the visit, through each, seeing the technicians who check their eyes, the doctors, the eye photographers, and all that stuff. So,
yeah. So what are, I guess, some things about this role that you really enjoy? And what are some things that you're like, yeah, I could probably go without this?
Yeah, so I really love research. It's very interesting to, especially starting at the beginning when it's just a concept, to see what you're trying to prove, that we think this drug or this intervention is going to help someone, and then following it all the way through to see if it actually works out the way you think it's going to. I really like that part about it, the data, seeing that. I really love working with patients, which is why I left the DCRI and took this job at the Eye Center so I could work one-on-one with patients. I like that. I'm an extrovert. I like that interaction. So that's something that I really, really like. My favorite part of the job is the patients. My least favorite part of the job is the doctors, to be honest. Sometimes working with the doctors can be challenging. So I always tell any students out there thinking about going to med school, always remember to be nice to the people that work with you and work for you. Going down that's what I always tell the medical students that work with us. And probably the other thing that is kind of hard for someone like me is that things never seem to work the way they're supposed to always in research. We're always behind. I've never worked on a trial or project where we've met the timelines that we were supposed to meet, whether I was at the DCRI or right now bringing up patients, enrolling patients in studies. It just, nothing ever seems to hit the correct timeline. So.
It's interesting. I talked earlier today to someone who she works at Lilly now, but she used to be a nurse, and that was one of the things she mentioned about being a nurse was dealing with the doctors. She said, I mean, it's not that they're bad; it's just sometimes there's this air of arrogance about them that is hard to deal with.
Yes, it is. I'm sure that's got, and they're not all bad. And even the ones that are arrogant are super smart. And if you told me you had a very specialized condition, I have 5 doctors that are great with their patients. They're just not always great with the people that they work with.
Unfortunately, that happens sometimes.
Yes.
So I guess when in your role in the research and all that, what type of person do you think would be really good for this role in this area, and what type of person may not be as good for this?
Someone who can multitask. I mean, I think, as I said earlier, when I have a patient visit, I am literally running the visit the whole day. So I have to be able to keep track of where the patient is, what we're doing next, where the doctor is, where the photographers are in their stuff. So someone who's kind of can multitask, detail oriented. The paperwork you have to fill out is intense, and it's very serious because the stuff is so that these drugs and everything can be approved and help people. So you want to make sure you don't make any mistakes. So detail oriented is very important. Like I said, I'm an extrovert. I like to work with people. So I think someone who might want to be in the medical field, but maybe doesn't want to be a nurse or something like that. I think research is a good kind of way to be in the medical field without having to do bedside care for patients. We have a lot of nurses, a lot of social workers, a lot of people that kind of convert over to research. So I think that would be good. And then even for someone who doesn't really like people, maybe you're an introvert or something, the other good thing about research is there is that data side, that behind the scenes type thing. My other job was much more data and project driven than people driven. Mm-hmm. So you could probably, if you like data and you like that kind of stuff, you could, do that end of it. So it's kind of diverse, I would think.
Yeah. So how did you get from just being the part-time after your kids are born, it's like, yeah, I'll just try this out, to the coordinator, the clinical research coordinator? How did you get there? Was there was it anything that the Duke Eye Center offered as far as classes, or was it just patients and working your way up?
Yeah. So I did most of my working my way up at the DCRI. So, and it was more, we have to take a lot of classes at Duke just to keep we have city certification, which is basically human protection for if you do research, you have to learn all the rules because, you have to follow all these rules. So you have to take those. But, anywhere you would go, you would have to take that. So it was more patience, and I liked what I did, so I was always asking for more work and more hours, and I really enjoyed my job at the DCRI as well, and so it just was a lot of just continuing to move forward and make sure that people knew that I was interested in more responsibility and all of that, and just being kind of upfront about that.
Yeah. How would someone go about preparing for a career in this?
Yeah, I was thinking a lot about this question because most of the people that I work with do not have clinical research degrees. I have a degree in social work. There's several people I know who have social work degrees. I also have friends who have business degrees, biology degrees, nursing degrees. So, and at the Eye Center, I do work with several people who have there were COTs, which are technicians, that work opticians. So, but they do actually have it's a newer field. It's called a bachelor's of clinical research, and sometimes there's an associate's as well. So you could go that path. I would suggest, if someone might think they might be interested in clinical research, is to maybe look and see if there's classes, or look for a college that might have one of those degrees, and maybe take a few classes beforehand to see. I don't really think you need a degree in it, but it is something that you can get. And there's also like several certifications. So if you have a bachelor's in something else and you want to be a certified clinical research coordinator, you can take that certification, then you're nationally recognized. But you don't have to have, I don't have that, but you don't have to have that, it's just an added kind of certification you can get.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So last question, I'm going to get you out here on this one. Just give me some general advice for high school students, anything you can think of.
Well, this is the advice I have two teenagers. One just graduated from college. He's starting his master's, and one is a sophomore. And the things that I tell them and their younger siblings is, especially when they're going out of graduating and going out on their own and mom and dad can't be there all the time to be watching them, is to always make good decisions and to not make life-altering bad decisions. We all make bad decisions occasionally, but just try to always make a decision that, not make a decision that's going to change your life in a bad way. We all have to learn from our mistakes, but my mantra to my kids is always make good decisions. So just make the best decisions you can going forward.
Sometimes like the best advice is just basic stuff. Like, hey, don't ruin your life before you're 18. Like,
yeah, that's it. That's what I tell my kids. I mean, it is just the truth. I mean, they've both made questionable decisions, but nothing that has been life-altering. So I can live with that, and so can they. And they've learned from them and moved forward, and are both good kids. But you can always make a mistake. But right. you make that really bad mistake, and your life's never the same. So don't do that. That's my advice.
I love it. Once again, Lori Foraker, thank you so much for joining us here. We really appreciate the time.
No problem. And if you ever need anything or you need a good recommendation for an ophthalmologist, you let me know.
I'll do, definitely. Okay. Lori Foraker, Clinical Research Coordinator at the Duke University Eye Center.